Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giripad Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giripad Dhari Yashodanandana Vrajadana Randana Yashodanandana Vrajadana Randana Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giripad Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giripad Dhari Yashodanandana Vrajadana Randana Yashodanandana Vrajadana Randana Jamuna Tira Vanasari Jamuna Tira Vanasari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Radha Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Gaura Pimanande Daim Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Stotra Satya Sri Simad His Divine Grace Sirabai Charan Narvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Iskan Bibiti Founder Acharyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Harinam Sankirtan Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaura Pimanande All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Taksurandalitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kansana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Sri Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesa badrisu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Sakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhamyam Swasyayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Surabhyai Namaha. Om Surabhyai Namaha. Om Surabhyai Namaha. Mukam karoti vasaram pangom langayate girim yat kripatamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Yat kripatamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Bhagavatam class. We continue from canto number 2, chapter 1, entitled The First Step in God Realization. And today we are reading text number 20. Yes. Rajas Tamobhyam Akshiptam Vimudham Mana Atmanaha Yatsched Dharanaya Dhiro Hanti Ya Tat Kritam Malam Rajas Tamobhyam Akshiptam Vimudham Mana Atmanaha Yatsched Dharayana Dhiro Hanti Yat Tat Kritam Malam Rajas Tamobhyam Akshiptam Vimudham Mana Atmanaha Yatsched Dharayana Dhiro Hanti Yat Tat Kritam Malam Rajas Tamobhyam Akshiptam Vimudham Mana Atmanaha Yatsched Dharayana Dhiro Hanti Yat Tat Kritam Malam. Rajastamobhyam Akshiptam Vimudham Mana Atmanaha Yat Siddharayana Dhiro Hanti Yat Tat Kritam Malam Rajastamobhyam Apshiktam Vimudham Mana Atmanaha Yat Siddharayana Dhiro Hanti Yat Tat Kritam Malam Rajastamobhyam Akshiptam Vimudham Mana Atmanaha Yat Siddharayana Dhiro Hanti Yat Tat Kritam Malam Rajas. The passionate mode of nature. Tamabhyam. As well as by the ignorant mode of material nature. Akshiptam. Agitated. Vimudham. Bewildered. Manaha. The mind. Atmanaha. Of one's own. Yatchit. Get it rectified. Dharayana. Dharanaya. Yeah. Yes. By conception of Vishnu. Dhiraha. The pacified. Hanti. Destroys. Yeah. All those. Tat kritam. Done by them. Malam. Dirty things. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. One's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. But one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them. Kindly repeat after me. One's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. But one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them. Purport. Persons generally conducted by the modes of passion and ignorance cannot be bona fide candidates for being situated in the transcendental stage of God realization. Only persons conducted by the mode of goodness can have the knowledge of the Supreme Truth. This is exactly chapter 14 of Bhagavad Gita. Effects of the mode of passion and ignorance are manifested by too much hankering after wealth and women. And those who are too much after wealth and women can rectify their leanings only by constant remembrance of Vishnu and his potential impersonal feature. Prabhupada is recommending we should think of. Generally, the impersonalists or monists are influenced by their modes of passion and ignorance. Such impersonalists think of themselves as liberated souls, but they have no knowledge of the transcendental personal feature of the Absolute Truth. Actually, they are impure in heart. On account of being devoid of knowledge of the personal feature of the Absolute. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that after many hundreds of births, the impersonal philosopher surrenders unto the personality of Godhead. To acquire such a qualification of God realization in the personal feature, the neophyte impersonalist is given a chance to realize the relation of the Lord in everything by the philosophy of pantheism. God is everywhere. God is everything. You are God, I am God. Haribol. Pantheism in its higher status does not permit the student to form an impersonal conception of the Absolute Truth. But it extends the conception of the Absolute Truth into the field of the so-called material energy. We'll read this again. Pantheism, I have to listen attentively. Pantheism in its higher status does not permit the student to form an impersonal conception of the Absolute Truth, but it extends the conception of the Absolute Truth into the field of so-called material energy. Everything created by the material energy can be dovetailed with the Absolute by an attitude of service, which is the essential part of living energy. The pure devotee of the Lord knows the art of converting everything into its spiritual existence by this service attitude, and only in that devotional way can the theory of pantheism be perfected. And of the purport. We're reading the same purport, huh? Huh? Huh?
Yesterday was 19, today is 20.
You're right. No, yeah. So reading the text again. One's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. But one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu, and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them. Important verse, of course, and Prabhupada makes some interesting observations also in the purport. So here it is clearly being explained. The same the same explanation actually given by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, specifically in the 14th chapter, which deals with the modes of material nature, that as long as one is influenced by the lower modes of material nature, mode of passion and mode of ignorance, one cannot understand about the absolute truth. One cannot realize a God, especially one cannot realize God in His personal feature. Therefore, a whole attempt in the Vedic culture is to facilitate everyone to gradually rise from these lower modes of nature to at least become situated in the mode of goodness. So it's interesting in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is, of course, making reference, as he often does, to impersonalists or Mayavadis, and mentioning that even though they have some understanding that there is something beyond matter, they are in the category of transcendentalists. They believe in something higher than matter. They believe, understand, accept that there is the reality of transcendence, but they remain impure. Actually, as long as one is not able to develop or accommodate or accept and understand the personal features of the absolute truth, then it means that one remains impure in consciousness, naturally. Actual liberation from all gross and subtle levels of contamination. Prabhupada is making some subtle points here, actually, that all living entities, including those who are practicing spiritual life, minus or devoid of the understanding of the personal aspect of the absolute truth, is lacking in realization. Therefore, malam, yet not fully purified in consciousness, and can only attain what is also described, of course, in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a much higher level than the ordinary gross materialists who are totally covered by the rajas and tamas, mode of passion and mode of ignorance. But it means that the level of Brahma Bhuta prasanatma na sochati na kansati, is not still reaching the perfectional stage. And in other places, of course, Srila Prabhupada explains why this position is is not a permanent position. Therefore, it's not a secure position, because one is not engaged. And Prabhupada twice in the purport makes reference to service attitude in particular. It's like if one does not establish a relationship with somebody, in other words, if one doesn't make friendship with someone, he cannot serve that person, isn't it? Because it's only when there are relationships that loving exchanges can take place between the two individuals who are in a relationship. It's a reciprocation. And the more that service mentality, devoid of personal or egotistic goals, in other words, the more that service mentality or service attitude is without material motivation, again, as described in the Bhagavatam, first canto, such relationship remains also impure. But those who are impersonalists, because they have no access to establishing relationship, because of not knowing, isn't it, the personal feature of the Absolute Truth. Therefore, their position is not secure. And therefore Prabhupada would explain how often people who attain that level of consciousness, they generally come back to be engaged in different types of activities. Because by nature, living entity is active. By nature, the living entity is inclined to serve, is inclined to have relationships. And you can only have relationship, Prabhupada would explain, we can only properly understand the word love if there's somebody else to love. Love means two. Love means not only I love me. Love means two. Love means an exchange between two living entities. And so that's why in the purport, Prabhupada also quite interesting statement, making reference to pantheism, the ideology of pantheism, or the philosophy of pantheism. To acquire such a qualification of God realization in the personal feature, the neophyte impersonalist is given a chance to realize the relation of the Lord in everything by the philosophy of pantheism. So, yeah, this is a little bit subtle here. Prabhupada is telling here, pantheism in its higher status does not permit the student to form an impersonal conception of the Absolute Truth. But it extends the conception of the Absolute Truth into the field of the so-called material energy. So, Prabhupada is actually explaining how this conception of the impersonal concept of the Absolute Truth is meant to be a stepping stone, is meant to be a part of the development. Those who are actually sincere, even though initially they may be impersonal, those who are actually sincere, in due course of time actually will be able to rise above the impersonal concept of the Absolute Truth. And the key point, which is being mentioned here by Srila Prabhupada in the latter part of this purport, the key point is service. So Prabhupada makes reference also how from a lower level of consciousness, a young child, he initially is only annamoy, and this consciousness of the self, of the body, food, anna. And then there's a gradual, this 5 levels of development of consciousness: annamay, pranamay, jnanamay, and then vijnanamay, and culminating in anandamay. And of course, from our Vaishnav Acharya's point of view, actual anandamay is only attainable by those who are able to develop the personal feature or personal concept of the Absolute Truth. We accept, it is there also, of course, there is ananda in impersonal realization, brahmananda, but that is not the end of the story. That is not the highest level of ananda, and therefore, just yesterday, when these devotees came, and we had our first class in the mango grove yesterday. About 40 devotees from different places had their some of them were coming for the first time to Mayapur and somehow found themselves in a mango grove, hearing about the 3 types of happiness in the material world, right? Material happiness, spiritual happiness, and then?
Transcendental.
No. Spiritual means transcendental. There's material happiness, then there's spiritual or spiritual or transcendental happiness. Then there's another kind of happiness. Why are we sitting here this morning? To know about this other, above spiritual happiness. Srila Rupa Goswami describes in the Nectar Devotion, devotional happiness. Devotional, that is Premananda, isn't it? Spiritual happiness is Brahmananda, Brahmabhuta states. Okay. No anxiety, but still you're not, cannot be fully satisfied. Yeah, it's time to bring that glass. One is still impure. That's the point Prabhupada is making in the purport. Impersonalists are still impure, even though they reach the very high level. Here. No material anxiety, no hankering, but still they cannot be. Same thing that happened to Vyasadeva. Yeah, so many things. I know, I wrote so many things, but something missing. I'm not satisfied. Krishna gave him the clue. Yeah, you're not satisfied because you haven't spoken about or described the name, qualities, form, activities, etc. of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So our Vaishnavacharyas, in particular Srila Prabhupada, was always coming to this point, as he does here in the purport also, that until and unless we come to this realization of the absolute truth, being a person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I think it would be interesting to count how many times in the Bhagavad Gita, or maybe in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada mentions Supreme Personality of Godhead. That was my mental complaint when I first read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is coming up here too often, you know. Every page practically is like Krishna, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So by the time if you go through the whole Bhagavad Gita, you're brainwashed. I mean, your brain is washed. That's the point being made here also. The cleansing process, the full cleansing process. Lord Chaitanya demonstrated what is the real cleansing process in the Gundicha. You don't clean just one time. You have to clean twice, if not more, and you have to go in with the fine instruments to remove the hidden particles, so to speak, or what you cannot see with the naked eye, whatever. So this is nicely. So these two aspects are most important. That one must know that one must know that there are three modes of nature. Unfortunately, people are so caught up in the tamagun, they don't know that there are three modes of nature. They don't even know there's one mode. I mean, people don't know. Yeah. So at least we have to come to know that there is such a thing as the three modes of material nature. Mode of ignorance is completely covering us, unable to understand anything, and the mode of passion is just making us passionate, agitated, disturbed, and in constant competition with other people, and greedy, and all these things. So the two important things is that once we begin to know and understand the workings of these modes of material nature, and that we're totally conditioned by these modes of material nature, and we will remain conditioned as long as we don't come to the higher level of the mode of goodness. But even the mode of goodness is conditioning. Even the mode of goodness. At any time we can fall from that mode of goodness. That's also explained in the 14th chapter, that sometimes mode of goodness is defeated by passion, ignorance. None of the modes are secure. But the first important lesson is that of these three modes of nature, the mode of goodness is the best, is the most, is a desirable mode, as long as we are stuck up in the modes of nature. But better than even the mode of goodness is to go beyond the mode of goodness. And that is only possible if we know about Krishna, if we know about God being a person, and the whole philosophy of bhakti or devotional service. And it is that devotional service, the devotional attitude, service attitude, most important, that can firmly situate ourselves on the level of higher levels of transcendence, secure level of transcendence. I'll just read the verse again, and then if there's any comment or question. One's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature. So passion means mind is agitated. And bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. So ignorance means we are covered and confused, bewildered. But one can rectify, fortunately, but one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu. Yeah. Exactly the same thing Krishna is telling to Arjuna in the 14th chapter. That by knowing about these modes of material nature, and by knowing that you are a spirit soul, and by knowing that actually you are part and parcel of the absolute truth, by cultivation of this knowledge, you can attain that transcendental, your original transcendental nature of an eternal spirit soul, meant to be engaged in the service of the Lord, and thus become pacified. Yeah, only by doing this, one can become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by these modes of material nature. So as long as we have some attachment or some connection with these modes of material nature, we are contaminated. We are contaminated. Yeah. And that's why yeah. These Prabhupada mentions that these impersonalists or monists, they are impure in heart on account of being devoid of the knowledge of the personal features of the Absolute. That's, yeah. Any comments or questions on this? Two hands came up at the same time. That makes it difficult for me. Yes.
You are mentioning here the mode of goodness is also sometimes bewildering.
The mode of goodness, yeah, it's not a secure position. But it's not that the mode of goodness is bewildering. Mode of goodness actually brings knowledge. Mode of goodness brings one to the level of happiness. Mode of goodness, as described also by Lord Krishna, destroys sinful reactions. So mode of goodness is desirable, but it's not secure. Yeah, yeah. The other modes, passion is bewildering. I mean, mode of ignorance means we don't know what's going on, and the mode of passion is making us agitated. Yeah.
When we are practicing devotional service with Maharaj, so we try to come to mode of goodness because we are at least clear that this is mode of passion.
Yeah. That's the first thing. Correct. Yes.
So, and after starting, after practicing mode of goodness also, sometimes we get confused that what exactly I should serve. It could be the mission, or it could be one's own guru. Because how I have to serve? Anything, of course, is service, devotional service.
Right.
But how I have to serve in order to please guru and the mission Prabhupada and all. So that kind of questions always go on.
Yes.
In my mind.
Yes.
So is it in the mode of goodness, or it is beyond goodness? The confusion state is there.
No. So the question is, even we are, as devotees, we know, this is a basic point of the philosophy, we know that we must strive to come and to remain in the mode of goodness, to rise to the mode of goodness and remain there. But your point is that even in the mode of goodness, we sometimes are seemingly confused as to, well, what service I should do, to serve a guru, to serve the mission, or to serve whatever. Such types of questions will be there, but such types of questions are good and healthy because they are in relation with things that are desirable. But they should not be bringing us such kind of confusion that we don't want to perform. What service we should be doing, where we should be serving, these things will be more clearly, I would say, understood based on our our level of consciousness. Number one, excuse me. It's that time of the year. And also sometimes we have to consult with senior authorities or senior Vaishnavas to understand, what service I should be doing. So that's also so these two things are there. The more we are personally or individually purified in consciousness, a super soul within the heart will be able to guide us. Right? Super soul in the heart is there, always ready to guide the sincere devotee. So the more we are applying the process of Krishna consciousness, things will be generally more clear for us. What we should do, where we should be, like that. So that is, in other words, we can understand by the direction of Super Soul, and if somehow, and it's not necessarily that we're not properly applying the process, but there will be situations where we may require the good guidance or the good direction from senior Vaishnavas as well. That means that even within the realm of spirituality, within the realm of devotional service, we may not always be clear in terms of maybe duties or responsibilities that we have. So therefore the importance of association with devotees, and knowing that it is healthy, as a matter of fact it is recommended, that we seek out the good association of senior Vaishnavas especially, who can more clearly and more easily understand our particular situation because of being senior and maybe having gone through similar kind of situations. They can give us some good advice or good understanding. Yeah. So that's not a bad kind of bewilderment, because it's in relation to Krishna, but we may need to seek out guidance, which is quite. The whole Bhagavatam is about, isn't it, exchanges and questions and answers between devotees, sometimes between very elevated devotees also, because the subject matter that we are dealing with, spiritual life, devotional service, knowledge of the absolute truth. Here, this chapter is dealing with the first step in God realization. So God realization and everything connected with that is like unlimited, and so it's not. It's rather expected, not unusual, to have certain doubts sometimes or questions as to maybe services that I should be doing, etc. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it necessary to devotee come to passion to mode of goodness? If see that.
Is it necessary to come to the mode of passion before going to the mode of goodness?
Yeah,
You can bypass passion.
by devotional service, somebody may be in passion, but the consciousness is I am working for God. In that context is important that one definitely should come to should come to. In Bhagavad Gita, the whole thing is like Arjuna want to go to forest, he don't want to fight. But Krishna says that in your passion you serve the Lord in that.
Yes. One can be passionate under direction. Arjuna, being a Kshatriya by nature, they are more passionate, but passionate under the guidance of Brahmanas, or that's why Kshatriyas are meant to be taking direction and guidance from the Brahmanas. In the case of Arjuna, he took direction directly from Krishna as a Kshatriya, and Krishna, as you rightly mentioned, encouraged him. And Prabhupada mentions also, you can't fight unless you're passionate. So, yeah, that question came up yesterday also in the short sangha that we had. That if we want to, what about our philosophy? Trinadapi samicena, and not making difference between friend and enemy. Then how to go about that if you're a Kshatriya by nature? So Prabhupada mentions that it's not. We have to know the philosophy, understand the philosophy, and if devotees are attacked, for example, we should defend the devotees, not just sit down and chant Hare Krishna and, like that. So, yes, passion can be utilized in the service of Krishna, and the passion that is referred to here simply on the material platform is a level of passion that is creating anxiety because it is on the bodily platform. But we can use passion in the service of Krishna when it is based on shastric injunctions. Yeah. Okay, can close here. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. But ignorance is very difficult to use. Yeah, we can be ignorant of material, attractions, allurements.